All right, great. Thanks a lot for joining us today. We're going to take a look at some simple tips for awesome startup copywriting. The first thing that we need to remember is that as you begin your startup experience, you're an entrepreneur and you want to fulfill the needs of your customers because that need is out there, but that supply is not there, and that's why you started your business. The only way to write great copy is to understand who your audience is. And since you're just starting out, you're going against really large companies that have millions of dollars to spend on content and have thousands and thousands of pieces of content in their archive that you're competing against. So the best way to do this is to start small and really niche out and focus on your audience, because your audience is pretty important because they're the ones who are going to be paying you. So how do you really focus on your audience? Well, you could do your audience customer research, and once you understand your audience, you need to be relevant. You need to be showing specific information for specific needs, because again, your startup is not as large as your competition, so you need to be trying to alleviate a specific problem or pain point that your audience has. The next part is being consistent. Your startup is starting up, so you haven't developed a brand yet, and being consistent in both the visuals and here the copywriting is very important, because this is where you really set the tone for your audience to understand what they're walking into every time they interact with your startup brand and online marketing collateral. The third part is easy to consume. A lot of people, even with very technical startups, try to go a little above and beyond with really heavy and dense content, and it's much better just to be able to consume that content easier. Consider that a lot of your consumers are coming through mobile and tablets. So if you're not having content that's easily consumed on mobile and tablets, you're going to be losing out on about 60% of your audience, which means lower qualified traffic, which means less sales for your business. So again, focus on how to make your content easy to consume, and we'll talk about that a little bit coming up. And then also you want to optimize your content. Again, we talked just before about making that content optimized for the devices that your audience is consuming your content on, but you also need to optimize that content to be found by Google, because when people go to Google, they're asking questions, and Google can't send people to your site if Google doesn't know how to understand and contextualize what's on your pages. So again, we're going to look at how to drive qualified leads to your site through optimized content. And the best way to focus on your audience is to use customer interviews, market research tools, user personas, surveys, all these other tools to get first-hand and third-hand insight on who your customers are. Because the more relevant, consistent, and consumable your content is, the better you're going to be found. Everything that you write about for your startup needs to be benefits and results. It's not all about features. There's a lot of startups that just focus on their features of their product. Nobody cares about your product. They just care about the benefits and how it will improve their lives. Every time somebody purchases from you, the benefits and results of that purchase outweighs the cost of that purchase. And that leads into value. Value is summed up by either saving time or saving money. As you begin to write awesome copy for your startup, make sure that you're showing how your product saves time or money. And that's kind of a pro tip that I started using, and I've been seeing a lot of results from it. Well, how can you show that? Well, you improve their lives and you help them achieve their goals. And always tailor your content for your readers. Remember, going back to the first one, the first step of this, the first slide, is understanding your audience. Your startup needs to niche out your audience, and niche out, even if it's a smaller base, it's better to get 12 people buying from you out of 24 people than one person out of 1,000. So the third part is we need to optimize content, because your content needs to be found. You can make the best content in the world and have the best product, but if no one can find it, then it doesn't matter, and you won't make money, and you won't be in business for that long. So part of your startup marketing plan needs to be centered around getting found on Google. So how do you do that? Since search engines are mainly driven by text-based content right now, using the right keywords is a very big part of this, and that's keyword research. You could use tools like SEMrush, Ahrefs, other tools like that. Go through forums to really understand what people are looking for, and then use those exact phrases in your content so that when people go and they type something into Google or Bing, that exact phrase shows up, and then Google or Bing will understand to align that question with your answer. And then format your content to be read. Again, about 60% of your traffic is going to come through mobile, so don't be mobile ready or mobile friendly. You need to be mobile first. And then publish and promote. A lot of people, including myself back in the day, spent more time writing content and less time promoting it. Again, you could have the best content in the world, but if no one reads it, no one can take action, no one can give you their money. So spend about 20% of the time producing and 80% of the time promoting. So actionable tips. We just looked over how to format and the need to do like keyword research and things like that, but let's not just leave it at that. Let's actually look at how we can make this happen. So the first thing is, I always like to have about 2 to 3 sentences per paragraph. This means that it's not going to be too long nor too short, and it also gives us enough space to really build it out with those keywords to optimize. The second point, is to always bold important terms. What this does is it helps draw the user's eye to specific terms of your choosing, and it also helps to break up any kind of longer text blocks. And while we're on the point of breaking up large text blocks, always remember to use bullet points when possible. This again formats it for mobile and also breaks up the text and helps people understand and easily consume your content. For the length of your content, you always want to have it about 1,200 to 1,500 words. This usually gives it a large enough canvas for you to optimize your content without having to stuff it, and it also helps with ranking your information in search. Since in the English language people read from top to bottom, left to right, I always like to align my photos to the right of the content. This puts a lot more emphasis for the reader on the content itself, and then uses the photos as kind of a backup buddy, if you will, like an assist on the basketball court. Instead, if you were to put your picture on the left-hand side, that's the first thing that people see, and it can lose the importance of what you're trying to say. Always use a clear CTA. That's a call to action, because again, it's great if people are coming to your site, but all the traffic in the world doesn't matter if no one's buying from you. And then use conversational tone. You always want to use you and I instead of having a third party or a third person view on something, because it's less personal. Again, your startup needs to rely on that personal connection that you have with your customers, because you know their needs, and that's why you started your startup. And some of the best tools to use here is Ahrefs, SEMrush, and LSI Graph. I'm going to put a link to both of those below in the description so that you can easily find those, and also a number of other links to help out with your continued research on that. So thanks a lot for your time today and taking a look through the best startup copywriting tips. Again, feel free, if you have any questions, to email me, cg@strategybeam.com. Again, that's cg@strategybeam.com. And if you could, go ahead and leave a like on the video, as well as subscribe, and leave a comment below with any questions or any ideas that you have that have to do with this. And if you're a startup, I'd love to hear your strategy and your marketing approach and how successful that's been. So until the next video, we look forward to seeing you on how to improve your small business or startup in today's online world. Thanks.